All right. Welcome, everybody. This is episode 7, and I have a super awesome and special guest with me today. I've got Iena Ballug. Hi, Faith. Hi, Iena. I use two names because I know her like in two different ways, but I call her Iena. Iena, kumusta? How are you doing?
Hi, Kuya. I'm great. But the struggle is real, but it keeps me alive. Wow.
we were just talking earlier na parang this is the morning, and this morning sort of routine is a very new thing for you, no?
Totally. No, not yes. Kasi I usually do a lot of the work as a performer during the night. We practice during the night, we perform during the night. So until wee hours in the morning, and then sleep through the morning, and then wake up in the afternoon.
Yeah.
It's really hard to put down a routine.
Exactly. I remember that first shoot that we had, that freestyle shoot we did for Creative Athlete, and parang I think, so grabe, as in wala kang tulog nun eh. Parang you told me, yeah, kuya, parang I was out 5, 6 a.m. parang gig, and then nag-freestyle ka pa. I was like, man.
Nakatulog ako sa sasakyan mo nun.
Yeah, that was funny. But we were, as for the people watching, Iena and I were just talking about like productivity a little bit and how it really differs from person to person. So, you know, I there's a lot of advice that's out there in terms of, working in the early mornings because you basically have that time for yourself. There's no distractions. People aren't reaching out to you. And you can really hyper focus. And then what happens is you have the rest of the day. But usually to be able to wake up at that time in the morning, you need to sleep at like an earlier time. And so I found that sometimes that works for me. There are days where I'm able to do that. And there are days where, I really just end up sleeping late because it's like from one work thing to another. And then I'll wake up late. But basically the thing is, it's just a matter of how you use that time. And so in the late evenings naman, there aren't really people bothering you din eh. Me, personally, no one's really bothering me in terms of like deliverables and like questions and things like that. So it's the same, whether it's the late night or the early morning, that time is for myself. So it's great to hear that you're trying that out. And it's a good way, the hard thing I know is like, this is what I always say, because you mentioned this a little bit before the call, which is when you're a freelancer, the great thing about it is, you control your time, right? The hard thing and difficult thing about it is you control your time. So you're basically like accountable to yourself. Diba? So that's an interesting thing that you're trying out. So let's jump in a little bit. For the people that are, I'm sure people know you already, but for the people who are getting to know you for the first time through this call, maybe you can tell a little bit about your background, how you got started. Before we get to Krump, right? Because that's your thing. Tell us a little bit about how you got started into to dance, like the introduction to, right? And I want like yung parang as a kid, like you got into this, like how did dance sort of enter your life?
If I'm gonna start from my childhood, I think I really was a bibo kid. My mom always wanted me to dance, to sing, show me off to the relatives. So it all started from there. We did it all. Everyone did this. And then it got more serious when I went to school. Kasi I joined competitions, so nung elementary, singing and dancing, folk dance, yung ang tawag doon, when all the kids line up and dance.
Yeah.
I forgot how do you call that in school. Tapos it got more serious nung high school ako. Nung I was living sa Pangasinan noon at first. And then we moved to Baguio. So I moved schools. And then when I moved schools, I stopped dancing kasi sobrang nabully ako nung pag-move ko sa Baguio. So it was very traumatic. Tapos, meron yung time na we tried to create a performance para sa, anong tawag doon? Sa quarterly quarterly thing sa school kapag katapos na yung final exam ng quarter. Ganon. Tapos nung tinuturuan kaming mag-dance, parang hindi ko na alam sumayaw. Yung left and right ko, parang hindi ko na alam kung paano siya i-coordinate. So I think yung trauma na nangyari sa akin nun, na cancel out niya yung talent ko. Wow. Yun yung nangyari. So I didn't dance for mga 2 years. So every year naman nagda-dance ako. So nung 2 years na yun, hindi ako nag-dance. And then when I went to high school na meron na nag-invite sa akin sa UP Shadows. High school pa lang ako pero may nagre-recruit galing sa UP. They call themselves the UP Shadows. So they're a dance street dance group sa UP Baguio. And then doon na talaga naging mas serious yung training ko sa dance. So 12 years old ako noon nag-start. And then from then on, I never stopped.
Wow.
And except for the time where I got injured. Ayun lang. So from then on, 12 years old na ako nag-stop. Tapos adik akong mag-class. Kung ano-anong ginawa ko sa dance ko. So I learned dance sport. Nag-compete din ako dance sport nung college. Wow. Nag-cheer dance din ako nung college.
Wow.
Ano ba? Contemporary also, and then we learned basic ballet also. So
wow.
Handle kami ng studio. Oh yeah, so
how did you fit this all in? Was this in all in college or parang high school yung iba doon, like the ballet and the contempt?
Yung nung high school mas street dance talaga. Pop pa yung tawag namin doon. Pop dance.
Pop dance.
Hip hop dance. So hindi ko naman na-try mag-techno so far. So siguro I'm not that old siguro for that. Tapos but most of the mas technical styles is nangyari talaga nung college. Kasi mas marami akong options nun or venues to learn. Kasi doon na talaga nagkaroon ng teachers and studio kasi na matatag.
Wow.
Something ganun sa Baguio. So yeah.
That's nice.
Marami din.
It sounds like it's super like parang packed, your life in terms of, and you started really early, like 12. I think, for me, I'd always loved dancing. Parang I was the one that would dance like in the parking lot pagka may narinig ko kong kanta. This is like as a little kid and my parents were like walking me around. So I was weird like that. But I think the formal training, parang for me, the formality came more on sa college. I started experimenting in high school, but formality was in college. So, but what I want to ask is, so you started early, like at 12 years old. Was there any parang point where you explored like different passions? I don't know, like maybe you tried skateboarding or guitar ka, or parang was there ever a point where you're kind of like, magda-dance ba ako? Or parang medyo magaling din naman ako dito sa ibang area. Was there anything like that?
Actually, dance didn't come first. Dance was second. My first addiction really happened when I was 11 sa guitar.
Ah, wow.
Sa guitar talaga. So sobrang addict ako. I learned, I don't know, by myself.
Yeah.
Nung una piano kasi, so it's good. It's a good thing that I learned how to read notes. So nung nag-guitar na ako, it was kind of easier.
Yeah.
Tapos I joined bands.
Yeah, diba? Nag-drums ka?
Pero nung high school to, yung sa marching band ko kasi nung college yun. Kasi
okay.
it was kind of a scholarship nung college ako. So, nung high school, yes, 11 years old. First year high school ako kasi 11 pa lang ako noon. Kasi I started earlier.
Yeah.
So, yun.
Wow, so talagang music talaga ang pursuit noon, no? I mean, you were in a band, so you were playing guitar for the band, or were you singing also?
I was also singing.
Wow.
Mas magaling kasi yung vocalist namin, so siya na lang.
Ah, okay. Yeah. Yeah.
I was a better guitarist than a singer.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of what's funny is like I think a lot of dancers talaga like we like to explore different sides of the musical arts, right? Like you have dancers who maybe at one point were frustrated singers, or parang they really just like love singing as well. you know, you have dancers who, I was into beatbox for a bit. Parang I was like in my house. I also played guitar a lot. This was back in high school, and literally I would watch videos. I would learn covers on I forget the name of the website, pero parang may chords doon eh. Tabs, guitar tabs.
Guitar.com.
Yeah. Because I'm personally, I didn't know I didn't have the formal training to read notes. So parang I would just look at the tabs, and I remember I was trying to learn this one song that went viral. This one guy was in his room. He was playing Canon in D.
Canon.
Yeah.
Canon rock.
Canon rock.
I learned that too. Oh my gosh.
So I locked myself in my room for days, and like after time I realized that it wasn't, you know, like you know, because when you have a guitar, like you're looking down like this, right? And then it would get to a point where I'd be so sore because I didn't. You know what I mean? But that's awesome. Yeah. So I super relate. Yeah. Especially I think at the time, because at that time I would say, you know, a lot of the music that was coming out was more of like ganun kind of music. Like you heard more punk rock, you heard more pop rock, things like that. There was a lot more music like that coming out than there is now. You know, so it's crazy how music in our era, in our generation, really affects a lot of the decisions that we make, and it just goes to show you that you know, more than just dance, it's our connection to the music. I mean, my parents grew up with disco, so my dad knows disco moves. You know what I mean? So it's cool stuff. That's awesome. Good to hear that. So now, you know, you've had your introduction to dance. Basically, it's just been around you this entire time, and you even had so many different disciplines to sort of choose from. I mean, you got to taste a lot. You went contemporary, you went ballet, right? And then you even had your marching band stuff, so cheerleading. So dame. So that's really cool. So what about Krump was the one? And now most people know you as a Krumper. So what about it was the one that got you to stick? And how did you get introduced into Krump?
I got introduced it kasi nga addict akong mag-workshop. So back then we had a studio in Baguio, Philippine Dance Studio, and then before Krump, I was actually more into urban tapos whacking. Kasi yun yung main styles nung dalawang group na I was in. So, nag-invite yung, I don't know if we invited them or, basta yung studio namin, we invited teachers from Manila. Kasi nga addict kaming mag-workshop, gusto namin palagi kami natututo. So, these people came, diba? Basta, mostly urban teachers. Tapos may isang Krump teacher. Yung isang Krump teacher na yun, si Switch.
Yeah.
So sabi ko, ano kayang kukunin natin class? Wala na akong pera. Isang class lang yung kaya kong i-take. Tapos, mag-urban ba ako? Parang okay din mag-urban. Kasi syempre, urban naman yung class, yung style ko. So sabi ko, hindi, Krump na lang. Ano ba kaya yung Krump? Sige, yun na lang, try natin para malaman natin kung ano ba yun. And then from then on, so, nag-tour si Switch, nag-session kami, sobrang saya. Ang dami namin nun mga first-timers. Halos lahat ng first-timers na pumunta dun sa workshop na yun, nagtuloy-tuloy na mag-Krump. Yes. And I think na-hook ako dun. Actually, hindi ako ma-hook dapat dun. Kasi in-invite na ako agad ni Switch na maging fam niya. So, gusto mo bang mapunta sa fam ko? So, sabi ko, ano ba yung fam? Hindi ko maintindihan yun. So, sige. Kasi gusto ko matuto. Addict nga ako matuto. So, sige, try natin kung anong man yan. Yun yung nasa isip ko. Kasi hindi ko pa siya maintindihan. And then, nung naiintindihan ko na siya, tsaka lang ako talaga nag-commit to it. At tsaka ko lang siya na-learn to love. So, hindi siya love at first sight.
So it started with this class with Switch, right? And then it sort of kind of developed from there. Also, I wanted to point out, because you mentioned, you know, you came from different backgrounds. Most of the stuff that you were doing was like, quote unquote, urban, right? And just to sort of put it in context, obviously, like we're living in a time now where for the people watching, you're probably understanding, oh, I thought we weren't going to use like the term urban, right? And obviously we're respecting that. It's just more of, That's just the terminology that we used at the time.
Before.
Yeah, just in terms of like choreography and things like that. So definitely, if you're watching this, like we're sensitive to the situation. We don't like use urban like in our classes now. Actually, I've never used the term urban to describe any of what I do, because I never felt like it was. I mean, I just didn't know. It was more of like I was more of like just practicing. Tapos people were putting out terms like, oh, okay, I don't know.
Actually, hindi pa nga urban nun, LA ba yun?
LA, they even had like a different terminology for it. Yeah. Cool. So let's talk about
Okay.
So you studied with Switch, and then you mentioned FAM, right? And this is something that I'm super interested in, because you hear a lot about it in the Krump community, and from someone who's not as involved, and maybe for people who aren't aware, what does it mean when you're in a FAM, and like parang to kind of put it in specifics, like sometimes you have tie-dyes. You've got like baby tie-dyes, and then there's like junior. I don't know if there's a junior, but there's like different like levels of names, like junior, baby, things like that. How does that all relate? So can you talk about FAM, and then can you also talking about how you sort of earn names, and at the same time with these names, it's like some people have different names, pa. Like they came in like with this, tapos they have this other name, and then this third name, and then it's just like andame. So maybe you could talk a little bit about that.
Okay. Generally, your fam is like a house. House, kumbaga sa walking. Tama ba?
Mm-hmm.
Tama ba? Sa Vogue house, na parang sa Vogue. But then, they created this kind of stages or levels where you go from, ideally, where you go from the lowest stage to the highest stage, which is the deuce, or sometimes it could be the twin, or sometimes it could be 50. It depends sa big homie. So I think the lowest stage would be tiny or baby. Yun yung lowest stage. And then when you go from there, kumare, it's either your skill in Krump, parang nag-improve yung skill mo sa Krump, so also yung stage mo nag-improve. But then, not every big homie does it the same way. Mm-hmm. Sometimes, kapag your commitment to the fam, kung gaano ka tumutulong sa fam, gaano ka talaga ka-fam, yung how you treat your other fam mates, dun siya talaga nagmamatter. So, I think it's 50-50. It's 50 of your skill and 50 of your personality, your heart sa community.
Nice.
So, yes.
I love that. Let me just kind of tap in on that what you just mentioned, in terms of not just your skill, but also your character, basically. I was at a studio one time, and they were giving out awards, and usually you get like awards for like the best dancer, most improved, things like that. And then they had this award where they gave it to the person, not necessarily the best skilled or all of that, but they were just the person that was voted on by everyone else in the studio. Meaning it wasn't an award that was decided by the faculty. It was decided by co-students, and it just shined an importance in terms of, not just like your skill set, but it's just how well you interact and connect and deal with people. The how people see you as a person, and it's always one of those things, like if people are in the sandbox and you can't play well with the other kids, it's going to be difficult for you to sort of advance in your career or different things like that. But if you're in a position where people like working with you and you're likable, it's just much easier, I think. So that's a really cool. I love that, because again, more so than just skill sets, I've also said the same thing in my teams. It doesn't matter about like how good you are. If we can train skill, but I can't train you in your attitude. If you have an attitude problem, then it's going to be difficult for us to advance. So cool. I love that. So keep going. So you were talking about FAMs and all of that.
Okay. But then I just want to reiterate that not every big homie does that. Sometimes kahit hindi nila kakilala yung because sa fam namin sa big homie ko kay Kuya Pat, mas mas prioritize yung pagiging fam kaysa sa pagiging magaling. So it's really important for us to actually know the person personally, or at a close, I don't know, parang relationship pa, kesa sa being a stranger and then just seeing you, oh, this guy is good, so I'm gonna take him to my fam. Ganon. But
okay.
some big homies are like that.
Yeah.
But to keep it like really genuine or at its pure form, ganon talaga ever since sa Krump. Dapat sana. Yun yung ideally. And then, yung fams naman, it kind of, it's amazing kasi it creates a hierarchy na parang authority na automatic. Kumbaga, hindi siya set of rules, but if you know that that is the big homie of your big homie, then you have to have some sort of respect para dun sa big homie ng big homie mo kasi kumbaga parang mas mataas yung level niya, yung level niya, ganun. So nagkakaroon ng organization sa Krump na hindi naman sinasadya, which is I think is very good kasi magkakaroon siya ng paano ko ba sabihin, Kuya Miah? I don't know, hindi siya kalat-kalat. Hindi kalat-kalat yung community. So if something happens na hindi maganda, you know who to turn to. Like for this region, sino yung pinaka-leader nyo. Meron na siyang automatic na leader na kahit hindi naman talaga.
That's
ikaw
awesome.
Yung leader namin. Ganun. Kahit hindi ganun.
Wow.
So I think that's really great. Sa system. Nagkakaroon ng system.
I mean, yeah, that makes it really easy for you guys to connect with different fams. And I think that's also why the community is so strong, right? Because you operate off of that. It's not like you don't just get in there, tapos learn what you can, tapos leave. Like you're really just ingrained in all of that and connecting with people and getting to know them on a personal level, which makes the connections much deeper, which is really cool. You might be getting into this a little bit, but I wanted to ask also, so you mentioned names, right? Like parang you start from tiny and then you kind of go up depending on your experience. So like, is your name something that you earn or do you sort of come in and present yourself with it and then they'll adjust like your name as you go along? How is your name determined?
If you don't have a big homie name, so big homie name is parang your own character name. So,
okay.
When you go into a fam, you will always take on the name of the big homie. So it depends kung what level yung prefer ng big homie na ibigay sa'yo. So it's not really you who's gonna, okay, gusto ko po maging girl. You can suggest na, oh, uy, Kuya Pat, gusto ko maging girl side. Ganyan.
Yeah.
Tapos sabi niya, oh sige, tignan natin kung kaya mo. Pero, but ultimately, the decision is with the big homie.
Right.
Yan.
And
then the level naman.
Okay, yeah. Go ahead. On the level? On the level.
And then on the level naman, it's still talaga with the big homie. With the multiple names that you were referring kanina. I think it would be kasi meron siyang multiple fams. Kasi it's that loud sa Krump sometimes. Depending on the big homie again. So if you're a member of two fams, I could be Queen Haksayb and then I could be let's say na rin ako, Queen Vengeance din ako. Hello Ate Ab. So I could be Queen Vengeance and Queen Haksayb and Surge at the same time. Kasi Surge naman yung big homie name ko, my character name.
Got it. That's awesome. So the different names is really like the different fams that you're a part of. And that's cool kasi parang you're able to be part of different fams and that's okay.
Depending on the big homies.
Okay. I see. Yes. So okay, depends on like parang if you're gonna be with this particular fam only or if they're gonna be like, yeah, go ahead, like cool. So can your name change as you go along? So for example, because you said they sometimes they assign to you, right? Na parang paano kung nung una, kung paano ka gumalaw, they were like, uy, parang ice cream. So they're like, see, tiny ice cream, right? Tapos you get better. Tapos you're like, Kuya, ate, parang pwede na hindi ako ice cream kasi I feel like yung movements ko at saka yung character ko nag-evolve from yung una yung assigned sa akin. So, like, can that happen? Does that happen?
To change the actual name or to change the level?
No, not the level, but the name. Like the one that you first got there with. Na parang pag start mo pa lang, either you declared it or they said that this was your name. Does that just stick or are there chances where it can improve, or maybe it doesn't even matter, you know, like parang you just kind of do it because you let your skill speak for itself. I don't know.
Kasi when you go into a fam, you will always take on the name of the big homie. So that will never change. It's just the level that changes.
Oh, okay.
Mm-mm.
So wait,
so it could be tiny side and then move on to girl side, move on to lady side. But the side would never change.
But let's say you go into a fam, then that means that there could be more than one side.
Sorry?
I mean, could there be more than one? If let's say you go into a fam, you said that you're going to take the name of the homie, right?
Mm-mm.
So if that homie has other apprentices, are they all also sided in?
Yes.
That's okay. That makes it clear.
But not one person can only take one level. Or isa lang ang pwedeng maging lil side, isa lang ang pwedeng maging girl side sa fam. So, yon.
That's awesome.
Everybody takes on different levels.
Yeah, okay. Wow, so that's super clear. What happens if you know, you run out? Like parang all the levels are full. Tapos may mga gusto pang pumasok.
Yes. You will never run out. There are the traditional levels, the baby, tiny, princess, queen, and then there are the special names. For example, you could be Soldier or Mansa or Dark, or for Black Zik, Ghost, or Rugged or Wicked. You could assign like different special names, but still take on the last name. Parang last name po kasi yung big homie name.
Yeah. Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay.
For example, kilala niyo naman po si Black Vic?
Yeah.
So, ang special rank niya for 1K is Ghost 1K. So, that's not like a traditional level of the name, like Lil or Junior. So, yun po yung special names.
Okay. This is so, I'm amazed, like, you know, it's so interesting, and I think there's going to be a lot of people watching this like, whoa, you know, because ako personally, even before, I was experimenting with, this is back in high school, parang when I was also learning different styles. I got into Krump in terms of like movement in the beginning. Obviously, it was just starting out, I think, at the time, and then I was learning a bit about the culture, but I never was able to get so deep into it where it is now, where you've got this community and there are, you know, levels and fams and things like that, which that's why it's really interesting, and you're able to sort of talk through that. So thank you for sharing that. I think I'm super like, whoa, dami ko na learn there. So it's really awesome, right? You guys have these communities, and maybe now I want to ask a little bit about your journey into really like growing as a krumper. And I think I've seen a couple times where you even went to, I think, Russia. You know, I think you were competing there. And so maybe you can talk a little bit about how you sort of started into international competitions, and how does your fam sort of decide whether it's a competition that it's ready for you guys? How do they decide if you are ready for a competition internationally? Can you talk a little bit about that growth?
Okay, so my first international competition was in Malaysia. We never really decided na, okay, I'm ready to go out to Malaysia. That it wasn't really the point. Parang the point was to get out of the country with my fam, enjoy the competition. So that's all that really mattered. And then the second bigger one was in Singapore. So I was invited to battle there. So, pumunta ako kasi libre yung pumasahe.
Yeah.
Na-invite ako, libre yung pumasahe. Oh, sige, oo naman. I think you're never really ready for a competition. It's just that you have to go there and earn it for yourself, siguro, ganon. And then, nung pumunta naman ako the third one was Russia, I think. Oo, third one na agad yung Russia. In-invite din lang ako doon kasi nakita naman ako sa Singapore nung no organizer nung Krump Russia. So sabi niya, I think you're gonna enjoy there and I think you're gonna do good. Sabi niya, o di, pero dude, ang mahal ng pamasahe sa Russia. Tapos, sige na, kalahati na lang. Ganyan, bigay ka discount. So again, it was an opportunity that pag nag-no ako, I knew na mag-regret ko. So it didn't really matter if I was ready for it. I had to be ready for it.
Yeah.
So I prepared naman. So yung growth naman yung international scene naman, yung growth ko doon, I think the most parang mind-opening was that hindi lang pala ako yung magaling. Wow. Hindi yung level ng krump ng dance nila in other countries is different. Not specifically higher than ours, but really different, and nakaka-mind blown na maisip mo na akala ko sobrang buck na namin, pero meron din palang may other kind of buckness or goodness sa other countries. And then when you see that, magkakaroon ka ng mas, hindi ko ma-explain mas fire or mas humble din yung sarili mo to know na I have a lot to do pa, and there's a lot to conquer.
Yeah. When let's dive into that. You said that they might have a different buckness, right? Or they're not higher, but just different. What does that look like specifically? Like, are you talking like in terms of the concepts that they're using or movement? Like, I mean, how do you, for somebody who's listening to this for the first time, what does that look like?
Dito kasi sa Pinas, mas mas rugged.
Okay.
Mas very mapuso yung dance natin.
Okay.
So sa ibang, for example, sa Russia naman, in terms of movement, mas sila, mas power, mas technical, mas halatang drilled into their bodies yung nangyayari. And then sa Japan naman, mas technical, ganun. Tas iba yung, hindi ko masabi, it's kind of a vibe or aura na binibigay nila. And I think it comes with the culture of that specific country and how they do the dance scene nila doon.
Yeah.
So I think yung pagkabato ng movement nila or pagpo-perform nila is really different from ours.
Yeah. Cool. That's awesome. That is, I've always felt like, again, like just like earlier, we were talking about how music sort of influences us, right? And community is also such a big thing. Like the people that are around you, and not just like, community, but even like location, literally location. I grew up in Virginia of the US, which is like this country suburban area. I was maybe one of two dancers in my whole high school. At the time, they're like, "Oi, you're so good, right?" Yeah, but like in the context of good, being only one or two dancers in the whole high school, it's very different from being good like in a city of dancers in LA, for example. So I imagine to myself like the improvements I would have made if I was just there. And then now being here in the Philippines and being exposed to the different styles that we have. You're basically just getting inspiration from so many different places, right? And so that's cool that sort of translate, and you were able to see that on an international level of how these countries are sort of adapting to each of their styles, so that's cool. It introduces new concepts for you guys to use. When we're talking about competitions, when did you sort of feel like you were ready to start judging? Because I know by this time you probably judge more competitions now as well. How did you know that was something you felt comfortable with, especially somebody who was just like starting out?
I actually started judging earlier than when I went to other countries. So I started judging nung nasa Baguio ako kasi we had a studio. Tapos palagi na rin kami bumabattle noon. Jumping from Baguio to Manila, ganyan. And then hindi ko rin naisip actually kuya, hindi ko maalala but I think kasi nga meron kaming studio, and then meron akong parang kind of credibility kasi nga battle ako, nananalo naman ako. So napag-usapan namin, sige, mag-judge ka sa battle. Sige, mag-judge ako. Ganon. Hindi ko na siya inisip kasi I feel like kaya ko na. Hindi ko na ginudge yung sarili ko. Kaya ko ba mag-judge? I don't think hindi. Kasi I really felt comfortable with what I know.
Yeah.
Really sure ako sa alam kong gusto ko. Sure ako sa knowledge ko sa kung ano man nakikita ko sa battle and sa criteria ko. I think it also comes from a lot of experience siguro. Kahit bata pa.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's awesome. So that you really, I mean, it's really like knowing yourself really well, right? Na parang you could speak on anything. Na if somebody were to say, ate, parang what went wrong with my battle, or like how could I have done this? And you have an answer that you can provide that you feel comfortable sharing, right? And is that so when it comes to the judging battles and taking part in them, I guess in that space, you don't necessarily, do you need to confirm all of that a lot of times with your big homie or your fam? Or are those decisions like something that you're allowed to make on your own?
A lot of it I made on my own. But in other fams, I think, especially when you are new to the fam and I think you have a lower rank, so most of the time nagpapaalam sila na, okay, big homie, I'm joining this competition. What do you think of it? I'm judging, ganyan. They also do that. Oh, by the way, kuya pala. If you have kind of a lower rank, it doesn't mean that your skill is actually lower. Sometimes, sometimes yung mga little homies nila, they prefer this name kasi they want to stick to the name. They want to be loyal to the name. Ganon. For example, Baby Tyrez. Baby Tyrez, I think marami siyang pagkakataon to have a higher rank, but then he stuck to it. I think kasi he already loved the name. I can't speak for him, pero ayun nga po. I think is a good example.
Thank you for sharing that, because that was actually the question I was going to ask. I was like, so could you be a tiny judging a competition? And in fact, you actually can be, because ultimately, because if you're tiny, right, but like the people above you are like, the names were taken up kasi sobrang galing nila, edi sobrang galing mo din, you know. Cool. That's awesome. Yeah, diba? Okay, so how about this? When you're now judging a let's go into a bit of specifics. When you're judging a Krump battle, right? Okay. Sort of what kind of a different mindset do you have when you are jumping into, let's say, an all-style battle? Because I've seen you judge a couple of those as well. You know, what sort of things are you looking for, and what sort of differentiates the Krump battle from the all-style battle in terms of how you judge it?
Okay. Now in Krump, I think it's going on for mga years na din. We have a specific criteria. We have 7 criteria for judging a Krump battle.
All right.
So those 7 are your material, your combos, your character, your traveling, your get off, your musicality, and your timing. So those 5 are the actual criteria that we prefer na used by everybody. But not everybody uses it. It really depends on the judge.
Okay.
Paano mo gusto. But that is the general guide para mag-judge ka. So, yun yung pina-follow ko po. But sometimes, you don't get to follow that kasi judge ka habang battle.
Parang travel, timing, hirap eh.
Sometimes. So, travel 5 time, ang hirap po kasi talaga. Tapos diretso na, ganon. So, yun lang yung kumbaga guide namin. Pero I think it's applicable now in the pandemic. Kaya mong mag-judge ng 7 kasi you have time to watch and rewatch and put numbers on it. But when you're on the actual live battle, sometimes I divide it into 3. Intro, middle, ending. Yun na. So, ipagko-compare ko lang yung 3 parts na yun from one battler to another. Sino yung may pinakamalakas na intro, middle, and ending. And of course, pumapasok na din lahat ng 7 na elements na yun. In my mind lang. So, kailangan very observant and subjective ka at the same time.
Wow. When you say like all these little elements, right? Are they all equal, or do you, for example, if somebody kind of suffers in one, but they're super good in the other, do you give them props for that? Like, how does that work? I know that's a tricky one. That's a tricky one.
Okay, let's say na I would have the opportunity to actually grade them. Sabihin natin it's an online competition.
Yeah, online. Yeah. Okay.
So, all the 7 criteria would have for me the same total. 10, 10, 10, 10, 10. Lahat.
Okay, all right.
So it doesn't matter if you're better at this na sobrang-sobra. Pero kung if you lack on the others, may hila ka ng score mo.
Okay, yeah. I see what you mean. Definitely easier to judge when you can watch a pre-recorded or like a live thing as opposed to, you're not going to be able to do that than sa actual live competition, you know what I mean? So cool. I think that's super interesting in terms of like you guys have really like specific things that you're looking for. And I guess it's really important as well for any Krumper who's going into that these are areas that they're aware of, that they're working on, that they know that the judges are looking for, right? So that even before they ask the question, they have an idea already of where they could have improved or any of that stuff. I like that. There's so much structure for that, no? To judging those battles. Was this something that, when you say, is this something that was just sort of within the Philippine community? Was this a system that was passed down from international Krump Fams? How did you guys come up with that?
It was an instruction by the creator.
Okay. Yeah, there you go.
Yes.
Nice.
But then not everybody really uses it. I don't know why. I think it just really depends on the country where you're from, your culture, how your actual community is, how your actual community judges. Ganun.
Yeah.
Magkakaiba po kasi ng mata.
Yeah.
Magkakaiba ng sistema. So I think iba rin sa ibang countries. But for the Philippines, I think we get more of this system from the US.
Okay. And it's not it's not a bad thing, but if, for example, you go to a country and they don't have that system, do people who use the system look at that and say, you know what, you guys need to fix this? Or is it just more of like, okay, that's just how they decided? Because obviously it came from the creator, you know what I mean? But it came from him and he's like, Tie-Dyes was like, use this. You go to a country, they're not using it. So parang, what's usually the feeling of somebody going in there or, parang, ay, bakit hindi na ginagamit? or is it just like, kayo bahala, it's fine, ganun, good vibes, ganun.
I think that conversation happens to the worldwide OGs. So,
okay.
Doon nangyayari yung pag-exchange nila ng info, and I think we should judge like this. Like when they come together for an international event, tas magja-judge yung mga OGs from other countries, they get to speak with each other, they get to talk with each other how they could judge, and they could parang share yung ganun na knowledge. Kasi hindi naman po talaga siya instruction na, gamitin ng lahat ng ng competition, ganitong criteria. So, hindi siya ganun na requirement.
It's more organic.
Opo, more organic, I think. And then, I think kapag you're a foreign battler and then you come into a country, I think, na yun, kailangan, nasa mind mo na yun na automatic na, okay, this is gonna be different. They're going to look at me differently kasi I dance differently from them. Ganun yung, when I went to other countries, ganun naman yung na-realize ko din. Which I think opened a lot of connections. And yes, kuya, yung sinasabi mo kaninang mas concepts na pwede namin magamit.
So okay, let's jump into that a little bit. I love this because I'm just kind of diving in from each sort of insight you're sharing. When you go into a country, for example, and you know that they judge a different way, right? How are you now navigating presenting your original self, which is the way you sort of learned everything, and then how are you navigating it when you're in the battle and you're like, okay, they're looking for something different. So do you try that out or do you stick to your thing? How do you do that?
Kasi when you go to a battle, you won't instantly know how the judge judges.
True.
So malalaman mo na lang pagka magbibigay na siya ng decision. So I think, yes. So I think you have to be observant kung sa mga mauunang battle sa'yo, paano ba nag-judge tong tatlong judges sa'yo? But then if you know the judge personally, kung meron kang personal experience sa pag-judge niya, the other one, yes. But for me, I don't really change much sa dance ko. Except na lang pagka it's a concept battle. For example, if it's a character battle, dun lang ako nag-focus more on one skill. But generally, I really don't care who's yung judge.
Yeah.
Kung I always play with my strength.
Right.
Yung palagi kong ginagamit.
Yeah.
And let's see, kasi usually kahit naman iba yung hinahanap ng judge, pag nakita nilang undeniable ka dun sa strengths mo, it usually like just blanks off the other.
Yeah. That makes sense. And also, I think you talked to me about this before as well. Before this, where you said you also don't want to. While it's good to sort of appreciate like the different things that they might be looking for, you don't want to dive into something that you haven't practiced. Right.
True. Maybe so, I could work on it when I'm out of the battle, but I'm gonna use what I know.
Getcha, yeah. So basically, swerte yung huli. Medyo malas yung mauuna, no? So hindi niya alam eh.
Siguro.
Maybe, you know. Cool. That's awesome. So now let's talk a little bit about the cipher aspect of Krump, right? Because what's great about when I see you guys, getting into a cipher, it's really like everyone's so involved. You know what I mean? It feels like the person who's crumping in the middle is not only feeding off of their energy, but they've got the energy around them. You know what I mean? And it's very, I'd say in different styles, I can't speak for all the styles, but sometimes you go to a cipher and everybody's just kind of like, they're kind of just back, right? And they're just letting the person do their thing. But in a Krump band, it's like, you know what I mean? Like it goes into it, the energy. So how much of can you talk a little bit about the energy or the people who are in the cipher, right? And how they connect with the person in the middle and the importance of that in the Krump community?
The session is the heart of Krump. Yun, even before battles, even before tournaments, everybody was required to go to a session. You can only dance. Wala pa namang mga tournament even before. So you can only dance Krump when you're in a session. Either dalawa kayo or tatlo kayo. And then ngayon, nire-require ng mag-hype. Pero organically, hype happens in Krump organically talaga. Kasi doon na siya nanggaling. Kailangan mo magbigay ng energy. Kailangan mo mag-receive ng energy pag sumasayaw ka, and then you give energy back. And then also, when you're just watching, you give and give and give and receive the energy na binibigay ng dancer. So the hype and the session is the most important thing in Krump para sa akin. Kasi nandun yung totoong reason kung bakit siya Krump is to uplift yung taong sumasayaw or to uplift the community, each other. And then when you do that on the session, na-apply nyo siya in a dance way. Essence. Ganun.
Nice. I like that. I like the idea that you guys are feeding off of each other, and you even mentioned that sometimes it's required, right? Just to kind of start off, but then sometimes the best way to do it is like organically when you're just like in the moment. When this is what I kind of want to ask as well, which is what are for somebody who's watching a Krump cipher, they can see that it's probably very physical, right? Na parang, sometimes I don't understand like how you guys are able to get physical and still kind of remain in the zone. I mean, I don't know if there are moments like, for example, parang you're in the zone, tapos you're pushing somebody, right? Tapos maybe after you're like, bro, parang medyo malakas yung tulak mo, na off balance ako. Yung ganon. So, or like, baka may nagalit. Like, parang he was in his session, tapos tulak, you're like, bro, you messed up my set. Or like, so what are the no-nos are there any no-nos when it comes to the cipher, or like, can you maybe discuss the physicality aspect of it?
Sa session, parang wala naman talagang no-no.
Okay.
I think yung mga general, how do you call this? Demeanor ng kahit sino na nasa cypher sa kahit anong style. Kunwari, wag kang pumasok pag hindi pa tapos yung sumasayaw. Antin mo matapos. Parang general respect lang.
Yeah.
And with hyping and pushing, with touching while hyping, okay lang yun. Basta hindi mo siya ma-injure. Huwag naman masyadong malakas. But then sometimes, it really does happen. Grabe, sa sobrang, minsan kasi yung energy hindi mo na makokontrol. Maraming funny stories sa Krump na kung natulak, tapos na-shoot siya sa basurahan. O kaya dun sa may damuhan, mga ganon. Pero ano lang, sige. Pick up the energy. Sige,
Yeah.
Ano mangyari? Go lang. Pass na agad yung isa. So yung goal kasi sa Krump is, sa Krump session is to always keep the energy high. Don't let it fall. Tapos mamamatay yung hype.
Okay.
So, kailangan mataas palagi energy. So, sometimes nangyayari talaga yung mga ganon. With the physicality naman, I think the physicality happens more on street battles. Kasi merong time to build up on that beef or the aura or character na gusto mong ibigay na medyo battery, aggressiveness. May time ka to do that and to really tell a story. Kaya nangyayari siya sa street battles. At saka doon nangyayari din yung call-outs sa street battles usually.
Okay.
So, usually yung call-outs, may dahilan yun. Magka-call out ka dahil may dahilan. It would either be gusto mong i-challenge yung sarili mo or pina-call out siya sa'yo ng big homie mo para kasi may something kang kailangan gawin. Kaya call out, okay, lil homie, call out mo siya. Okay po, big. O kaya, you have a personal beef. O kaya, meron kang, personal beef. So, yung mga emotion na yon that happens before a call-out, dun siya na ilalabas sa street battle. Kaya mas nagiging, physical. Ayun. And then, yes, Kuya, go.
So in these battles, then this is actually exactly what I was going to ask earlier. Kasi in a cipher, and it's your fam, and you're getting physical. Okay lang naman, kasi at the end of the day, you guys are good, right? But in a battle like that, when you've got a call out, and it's also okay to get physical like that, even with somebody you've got beef with, or kumbaga you really set that battle because you had does that happen regularly, or is it something that people avoid?
Generally, it's accepted in Krump.
Okay.
But it depends on the person.
Okay.
Pero when you come into Krump, you have to accept the fact that sometimes it's going to be physical, and sometimes yung kabattle mo talaga magiging physical siya towards sa'yo, and you have to accept that fact that not everyone is gonna adjust to your preference. So if you prefer not to get physical in a battle, then don't accept a call out na alam mong magiging physikalan, or don't call out somebody na alam mong physical siyang mag-Krump. Sa sa limits ng pagiging physical, wala namang sapakan. I think, pero sometimes magkaka-accident na masasapakan niya, but mahahalata mo naman na accident lang talaga. Wala namang so far nangyaring actual sapakan.
I wouldn't. I think naman na, especially if these are people who are passionate about their discipline, I don't think naman that they would disrespect the art form by parang resorting to that kind of parang kumbaga, that's the whole reason that they're battling, is because they don't want to fight each other. They want to settle it through that conversation, right? So I think that's what's great about it, is there's even though you might have differences in sort of for whatever reason kung bakit kayo may beef or may call out, there's still that mutual respect in the sense that you're using Krump to converse, you're using Krump to discuss, you're using Krump to exchange. And just leaving it there, because I've seen like couple call outs before where like genuine beef, like just like I want to murder you kind of feels and vibes, right? Like on the dance floor. And then like after that, like, glad we had that, buddy. Like, parang, you know, parang best friends na, you know what I mean? Like parang, but because the beef was settled, the respect was there. I think that's very unique. I think it's very, it's a nice thing that you can see in Krump that it's so much more than just like a dance battle where you're looking at moves, right? But you're looking at intent. You're looking at just the organic reaction to the current situation that you're in. I think that's what makes it really impressive to me when I watch it. Come to think of it, there was one time. Can we just like jump? Because in my mind, can we just jump to sort of? We're talking about physicality anyway, but like the endurance that's needed for Krump, right? How long is like too long, you think, when you're going solo and then, maybe you're going to be gassed out and it's time to go ahead? Because if, for example, just to kind of give you a story, there was one time I was judging a battle. No, I wasn't judging it. I was hosting a battle, and we were featuring Krumpers. And I think at the time, the time limit, or the time that they said each sort of battler had per their round, was like 1.5 minutes to 2 minutes. They could use that time to however much they wanted to use. And then I remember like the Krumper was going in, the Krump Sala, and I was like, oh, this is dope, right? So parang they were going in, like going hard, 30, 40 seconds. About like a minute in, like he looked at me and he was like, are you going to call time? Parang ganun, kasi na-feel ko na mapagod na siya. And I was like, I didn't know what to do. I was hosting for the first time. So I was like, am I supposed to stop him or ganun ako mag-react? And then I remember after that, as soon as the round finished, he was gassed, like sobrang pagod na siya. And I said, all right, yo, just to kind of clarify it, like, you got 2 minutes, but you don't have to take up the whole 2 minutes. You know what I mean? And as somebody who also, I don't claim to be like a Krumper, but it is something I definitely tried out when I was first starting in dance. The energy is intense. Like that's required from it. Like it's a different, when you have like breaking is one kind of energy. A lot of that is like outward physical ability, right? And conditioning and things like that. With Krump, that energy, and even though your range of motion is just here, it's so like, because you're so intense about it, it can get tiring. So what I want to ask is like, what's usually like like for you, ikaw ba mismo parang, ay, medyo mahaba na to. I don't think I could carry my for this long. Talk about that.
It really depends, Kuya, where you are and what's your intention.
Okay.
If you're in a session, you could kill a session in 15 seconds. You can jump in, 15 seconds, you're done. Kasi the goal in a session is to just keep the hype. So when you get in, you just gotta give everything. Yun yung goal mo. So pag binigay mo lahat, pagod ka agad lahat. So alis ka na agad. So the next person could have the time to bigay niya din yung lahat niya. And then konti lang din yung time niya kasi pagod na din siya kaagad sa session kasi that's the goal. And then when you are in a battle naman, 1 minute I think is, sometimes it depends on the person. If kaya mong ma-feel agad yung dance mo in a minute is matagal na yun. But when you have 2 minutes, pag kunwari yung sinabi niyo po kanina, if I was the person who's gonna dance, I'm gonna build up really slow. And I think kaya ko umabot na kahit 2 minutes. I'm gonna build up slow. I will use the music properly and well. I will listen. I will do a lot of stops and pauses and slow-mos.
Yeah.
And then I try to conserve my energy. Sa Krump kasi, I think the most important part in Krump is really not being powerful itself, but knowing how to use that power efficiently.
Yep.
Na hindi naman kailangan palaging labas ka na labas or kailangan talagang malalakas yung throws mo.
Yeah.
Everything. But of course, it's yun kasi yung general look ng Krump. Powerful siya and intense. But then it's up to you how you use that power. Sometimes you can go out and then slow and then for yourself and then put the energy again out and then get it again. Para hindi ka talaga nagagas out.
Yeah. I like that you mentioned that because that's actually one of the concepts I learned from Phil. You know Phil Adram? Yeah. So I remember one time I was taking class with him. It was actually in the context of a choreo class. But one of the things he was talking about was like how let's say in Krump, you want to kind of draw in. you know, like the attention, you bring it in, and which is really cool concept, because sometimes you think of Krump as like back, right? But what makes the pack so impactful is the draw in that happens before it. You mentioned earlier, like the build up, yung parang, you know, the intent of why you got to this position. Like if you just went hard this way, I mean, that's one thing, but if you sort of told a story a little bit in that sort of draw in that happens, then this makes this that much more relevant, you know? And I started using that same concept as well when I started choreographing, even if I just wanted to dance or freestyle, and how do I kind of just, you know, vibe myself into going from 0 miles an hour to 60, you know what I mean? So I'm glad that you mentioned that, because I think that's something that's super, super, you know, specific and important to Krump.
True.
So while we're on this subject, I was talking about how Phil is, you know, I had the amazing opportunity to study with him, from a choreography perspective, and I was learning with him, got to cross train a little bit. This was at the time when, I was with the crew, and, I was cross training with TP. So we got to sort of learn from each other, and that was one of the learnings I took from him. Now, you said that you were also, obviously before Krump, you had different styles that you had experimented in. One was like basically like pop, right? You know, or like choreography. You also were in ballet and modern and contempt. So let's talk about the choreography aspect. What sort of learnings do you think you've taken from Krump, right? And are you able to sort of apply once you're making choreography?
Madami.
Yeah, you don't. Okay, so yeah, you don't have to. No, obviously, for the people watching, we can. This is like a huge, like, deep conversation. And actually, also, let me say, for the people that don't know, you're like, I would want and encourage you guys to take mentorship classes if you're interested in Krump, with Iena, or any other Krumper that you feel like you want to sort of learn from. And so maybe, Ines, you can talk a little bit about just like the more, like, some of the more surface level stuff that you think might be helpful.
Parang highlights.
Yeah. Like that you're kind of thinking about when you're making your choreography. Yeah.
Okay. So choreo, it's kind of a lot of different combinations of combos. Ayan. So in combos sa Krump, it really helps me with the technique sa focus points, and then with the add and subtract technique that we have. For example, when we have a pose, when we have one pose, we can create, and also storytelling. So with one pose, we can create a lot of things from there, and then not moving on immediately into another move, but making sense first with one pose, adding that, and then subtracting what we can, and then adding with that pose. So it doesn't go like, wow. So that helps me a lot with the flow ng choreo ko, na hindi siya kung saan napupunta. And then every pose that I make, every move that I make would always result into another. Para hindi siya nauubusan ng sense, and hindi siya nauubusan ng flow, hindi siya napuputol. Yun yung, I think is very helpful with me sa Krump, creating combos, and also with the character that I have to put in, na hindi lang basta siya move. So when I do my focus point po kasi when we look at a certain spot, usually with my eyes and my hand. So when I focus point, I have time to do more than just a move, but to react to my movement. So I think yun yung pinaka unique sa Krump, is yung reactions na ganon sa choreography, hindi lang sa freestyle. Yes, yun. I think those are the highlights.
Nice. And when you're in that sort of choreography mode, right? Do you sort of set your mind beforehand that, okay, I'm going to make this a really based off of Krump movements, or do you say, for example, all right, I'm going to parang try it from this perspective, or like I'm going to mix it? Like, what do you set your frame of mind before you're doing that when you make a choreo?
Yes,
Okay.
Kuya. I think it depends on the goal, kung ano yung gusto kong mangyari sa choreo. If it's for, and what it is for.
Okay.
If it's for if I'm gonna teach it to a beginner class, or is it a an advanced class, so it really depends on it. And ano ba yung gusto kong mangyari dun sa choreo ko? If sometimes gusto ko siyang mas maging relatable sa other people other than Krumpers, I use a different music. So dun ako una nag-uumpisa sa music muna. Even sa music muna na mas makaka-relate lahat ng tao. So I use TikTok music, ganyan. And then from there, I build on from there. Tapos naman, pag sa choreo ko naman for na para lang sa sarili ko or i-compete ko siya, oh man, I always start with the music.
Yeah.
Okay. I start with the music that I really, really, really like. And then I make it very, very, very difficult for myself.
Nice.
If it's for a competition.
And you know, this is such a like this subject we can really dive into for a long time because everyone has their approach in terms of, I know. But I thank you for sharing like some of your insights in terms of what concepts go into choreography. I'm sure there's more stuff we could dive into, like you know, is it Krump? Is it not Krump? Right? When it comes to this, do you label it? Like I think these are better discussions that I feel like it's hard because if it's just you and I think it's definitely one of those things where if you can get more minds, especially who are from the community, to discuss it. I think that's an important thing. So I'm not going to jump into that. Those are the thoughts that were sort of like jumping in my head. I want to ask this, but I feel like I think for anybody watching, you're going to be better off like talking to the big homies and really asking them about this that kind of a subject area. But what I want to also now jump into is a little bit of you know, community, and we touched on it a little bit earlier. But I kind of want to expand on it now, which is, you know, obviously we see that the community is very important to Krump, and we are now adjusting to a new sort of normal where we're in this pandemic and the lockdown affects, you know, travel. It affects, you know, how people can connect, right? Dance in so many ways, but also with the sessions and the things that we used to be more able to connect with on a daily basis. I mean, I don't think whereas before you could jam with like 20, 30, 40 people, right? Like parang in one place. And now you know, those numbers are gonna be much less. So well, first of all, let me ask this, before we talk about community, how much of your growth as a Krumper can happen, you think, as an individual, right? Solo, parang journey, like parang you don't have like access to your fam, right? You have a fam. It's not saying that you didn't have one. You have a fam, pero you're not able to go to go, you know, and train with them. So how much of that journey do you think you're going to be able to grow as a solo? And then how much of it is like, you know what, for the other stuff that you really want to improve on and this, and this, you're going to need to be around people for you to find and see that. I know it's a very like kind of out there kind of question, but maybe just see what you can pull from that.
Sige. If you know Krump, pero wala kang access sa community and mag-isa mo lang na naglalab and nag-train, I think, lilinis kang gumalaw, kaya mong luminis, kaya mong maging mas malaki yung galaw mo, siguro mas pero I don't think there's a lot of growth in Krump if you're alone. Kasi Krump is community. Hindi lang siya basta, it's not made by community, it's not made for community. Krump is community. So if you're not in a community, you're just dancing. You're not Krumping. So I think once you're in Krump, other people is gonna be a major part in your life. It not only with the sharing of knowledge, not only with the fams and stuff like that, or with the name that you're gonna get, or the things that you're gonna learn. It's really about how you live the culture of Krump, and you're only gonna live it if you're with other people in the community, in the same community. And I think all the learning and all the improvement that you need is there. And when you're alone, you can do very, very little. When you're alone, I think,
Cool. Thanks for sharing that. So you know, we're really seeing that Krump really just the community is a big part of it, right? For your growth. It's gonna be, like you said, it's gonna be difficult. And so that brings us to sort of the situation that we're in now, which is like the pandemic, the lockdown, quarantine, things like that. How is sort of the Krump scene here in the Philippines, you think, adjusting to it? I know, for example, you guys are able to do like your sessions, obviously in lesser numbers than before, for sure. I don't know, are you guys doing Zoom? Are you guys hyping each other through Zoom? Right? Is it like, do you take turns doing that? Have you tried it? Does it work? I mean, so tell me a little bit about that. How things are adapting for you guys.
Okay. In terms of let me just share something I observed with Krumpers ngayon sa Pilipinas. Nakakabaliw. Nakakabaliw lalo para sa mga Krumper, which is very community-based. Very community yung life namin. Kailangan namin makipag-session sa ibang tao. And pag mag-isa lang namin nagsisession, ayaw namin sumayaw. Hindi namin na-feel. Hindi kami makapag-release. So all the release and yung nasanay namin na mode of expression is nawala. Talagang nanggigigil kami. Gusto na namin mag-session. So ngayon, merong mga ibang people na I think na-observe ko yun kasi may mga nag-organize na ng events. So I think talagang na-adject na sila. Guys, kailangan na natin magkita-kita. And then I think na-attract doon yung many people naman aside from Krumpers. Kaya we try ngayon to session in smaller numbers. Sa Zoom naman, tinatry ko sa class ko na okay guys, mag-round si ganito. Hype nyo siya. Hype nyo siya. On nyo yung mic nyo. Pwede nyo siyang i-hype. Ganyan. Okay naman. Kaso ako, hindi ko marinig. Pero sige, basta, syempre nag-aagaw po kasi yung music sa voice. Sige na lang, go na lang. Pagka-session yung goal namin, sige, sumession ka lang, di importante yung music, basta gumalaw ka lang. Ganyan, okay lang yun. But then when I have to look at something, tas kailangan sabay siya sa music, malaking part talaga, malaking drag kapag walang hype. Kasi nape-pressure yung students pag sa class setting. Pressure yung students kasi parang walang nagre-react. Parang mag-isa lang nilang sumasayaw, ganon.
Yeah.
So I make it a point na naka-on pala yung mic ko and ako yung nag-hype dun sa na paisa-isa. Woo! Hey, that's good, ganyan. So very, very important po siya para sa amin.
And that's good to hear, right? Because you guys are adjusting to it, and obviously you're going to have the situations where you can set up a Zoom call and get engagement that way. And then you're going to have, I think now you're going to have more so also time to lab, right? On your own. Let's talk about this a little bit. We don't have to dive in so much, but when you're labbing is lab, when we consider that, is that a solo effort, or is it still parang when you're labbing, it's like with other homies then?
It's usually a solo thing na ginagawa mo mag-isa kasi you're just trying to experiment on moves. But it's so much better if you lab with other people, and when you have a big homie or a family or a friend to critic on what you're doing, kasi especially when you're at home, wala ka namang mirror. And pag record naman ng record, mabagal yung progress mo. So when you have someone to bounce off your ideas with, I think that's a better lab. For me, I can lab alone, yes, and then work on specific things lang na skills na naglalak. But then, konti lang yung time na ibibigay ko for that. So I do more lab with Zoom labs sa big homie, ganyan, sa fam. So we do that also every month or sometimes every week, depende.
Nice. And so let's say you're labbing and you're doing a Zoom lab. Are you going into is it technical in a sense, like you're going into discussion points? Like, hey, like I like the focus point that you did there, or parang I feel like you're your I don't know, this quote unquote concept could have been better? Do you guys talk? Are there like sort of reactions and reviews to that, or is it just like, yo, dope round? Parang ganun.
Oo, kuya, sa lab, pagka fam lab, sa fam namin kay Kuya Pat, I think it also comes a lot with how Kuya Pat mentors. And very, very meticulous, at saka alam niya exactly what's going wrong, not just with the dance, but with your body, kung saan pa ba pwede maano. So in the lab, we do that a lot sa Krump techniques. For example, meron kaming, for a month, we are going to work on, let's say, for example, our arm placements. So, yun lang yung work on namin. And then, yun specific and technical po yung nagiging critic with each other. O, pwede mo pang itaas, pwede mo pang lakihan. Not just general.
Yeah. That's good. I mean, the specific advice, and that's great because like you said, it's important. It's one thing talaga when you're working on yourself, and then it's another thing when you have somebody else to look at it from an unbiased perspective, who's really just looking for you to improve. And there are going to be things kasi that you don't see that they can see.
Exactly.
And I think in any sort of, I think, pursuit or discipline, that's always going to be important, but more so pa in Krump, in the sense that your community, your family is really a huge part of your growth there. So that's cool, really cool stuff. So we've really dived, I think, a lot into like Krump and your background there and your experiences and everything. Let's talk a little bit about your career as a dancer, as a professional dancer. And maybe for people who are watching and they sort of want to navigate, because this is how I understand it. Let me, for context, right? Most of my career, I've understood, like, if you're going to build a dance career, one of the best ways to do it is to be a coach, for example, of a dance team, right? And that was early on. Well, it's crazy when I say early on. It's not like it was that long ago, but you have a dance team, you coach them, and then you have that's how you're earning. Now we're in a situation where there are more studios, more avenues to learn. The people are more than willing to take class. There's a difference in how you train on a team and how you learn in class. So people are seeing that value. So from your perspective, like how does one sort of navigate that as who wants to sort of try the professional aspect of being a dancer? And you can do it from the lens as a krumper, or just in general. Like I'm sure then naman, because of your specialties, you've got different backgrounds there, so you can adjust, right? Because there are going to be some dancers who are just purely krumpers, and they're not going to be able to take on these other dance gigs because it's made for this and not necessarily that. So maybe talk a little bit about like your experiences in terms of what work you sort of try to get into, which work you might say no to, and maybe some advice for people who want to explore a career in dance in sort of the setting that we're in now.
Sa akin naman, I really didn't think about earning in dance nung una, kasi it was really just kasi student pa ako, ganyan. But I started really earning money nung nag-teach ako. So I thought really young din. Nag-start ako magturo ng mga 16 years old ako, ganun, ng choreography. And then doon ko na nakita na, pwede palang pwede pala akong kumita dito. And then nag-start na ako mag-show. Ayan, medyo malaki din. Mas malaki pa ba dito? And I think as a dancer in the industry, I think it's really important na you have to know a lot of things aside from the style that you're doing. Siguro you could have a style that you're really good at, but then you really have to explore. It's like, how do you do this ba? It's like enrolling for a course. Kunwari, nag-enroll ako ng financial management. Hindi lang naman finance ang aaralin ko. I also have to finish general education. Kailangan ko din matuto ng konting science, ng konting mathematics, konting Filipino and English and history. And I think it's the same with dance. And the more you know, the more you can apply, And yes, I think the more opportunities that you will have to earn in dance. Kasi when you have more knowledge, it opens up more opportunities for you.
Yeah.
Hindi lang sa sarili mong style, and also knowing how to teach, also knowing how to communicate with other people, especially when you want to go into having your own studio. And saying that, after a while, after doing shows na konti-konti sa Baguio, we decided to create a studio, to make a studio, kaming magkakagrupo. But I would not recommend that to everybody kasi it's really hard to start and to maintain a studio, and hindi ka talaga masyadong kikita sa studio unless under special circumstances. And then, dahil nga sa kaka-workshop ko, dahil sa kaka-workshop ko, kung saan ako napupunta, so nakita ko nila Mami Lema. And then, I think that's the topic on how you connect, how you make connections. I think it's also really important for your, hindi lang to keep creating, but to also really put the effort on showing up para makita ka, para makita yung work mo. Kasi when you want to make money out of your career, if you really want to make it a career, kailangan mo din siyang i-market. Because we're kind of artist-entrepreneur. Parang magiging ganun yung magiging goal mo with how you handle your art or your creative things in your career. So I think it's really important to build your network. And how do you build your network? You show up. You show up to events. You show up to workshops. You show up to battles and competitions, and just keep, always be seen. Because it's really just the way to market yourself.
Yeah.
And ngayon naman sa online thing, I think it's also important to not just keep posting, but also syempre to keep the quality sa ginagawa mo and intention mo. You know, kuya, ikaw na. Mag-input ka na bago ako mag-umpisa ulit.
Okay. So, no, because you had a lot of great points there. So I was just listening. But okay, so I like what you were saying in terms of the one thing that you said earlier that I really loved as well was just like, the more that you're able to learn, the more opportunities it affords you, right? So obviously, if, for example, there are two ways to sort of go about it, I think. One, you build up your brand so well that people know you for that specific thing, and that gives you the opportunity, more opportunities. The other side could be like if you're starting out, you're kind of just building your skill sets and different things, and that opens up opportunities that way. So I think what we take for granted is the opportunity of choice, right? If you're just starting out, you don't have much of a choice. You're going to just take the jobs that are available to you. If you've been in the industry longer, you've been able to explore this, you've done work here, then you can choose, and I think it's the same thing, not just in dance, but like in different aspects of life, where you're always trying to pick up new skill sets. This is something I learned from my dad a long time ago. You can, for example, as a dancer, maybe most of your income would come through classes, right? But when you build different skill sets, let's say you're a good teacher. And so I know that there's opportunities where now you can even teach classes. They'll give you curriculum and you can teach that way. Or maybe, like you said, parang you studied a little bit of finance, right? And did you say that? Did you say studied finance, or you were just giving an example? Okay, yeah.
I did.
Having skill sets. So parang if you wanted, you could open up an opportunity in that way. So I think like the learning thing, the being able to learn different aspects to yourself, whether that's in the dance aspect or that's in the life aspect, it really opens up the opportunities. Cool. That really good insights there. There was one thing that you were saying at the end. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Also kasi, in the Philippines, I don't think there's that parang set or mas stable na opportunities para sa mga dancers lang, like performers lang. So I think sa age natin ngayon, we really have to venture out of the dance, but really in the entertainment industry, and learn how to maybe do commercial modeling. Kasi for me, I also do that, and it really helps me with sa income ko.
Yeah.
And then you can do events organizing. You can be there and still be at kind of the within that umbrella. Kasi it creates more. Yun nga, it's really all about opportunities and having that bala para masabi mong, oo, kaya kong kunin tong opportunity ngayon. I can say yes to this. And I know na I can do this kasi meron kang bala, meron kang knowledge about it. And yun talaga, opening up and taking in and saying yes more. I think it's also important na we say yes more kahit na you think na, kasi, what do you call this? If I didn't say yes to a lot of things, I wouldn't have, kunwari, yung sa Russia, kung hindi ako pumayag, hindi naman ako makikilala ng ibang tao, and I wouldn't have made the connection. And say yes more to opportunities na feeling mo hindi mo kaya, pero kaya mo namang matuto. I think pwede, go. As long as wala ka naman natatapakan na ibang tao. I think it's really, yes.
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 Yes. No, I like that. You two things there that really pop out. One was the fact that you mentioned just the importance of your area that we don't often take into consideration, right? Na parang you said in the Philippines specifically, it's just the reality where the opportunity isn't as much. And I think that applies everywhere. So, you know, even in the States, if you're a dancer from the state of Oregon or North Dakota, right? Doon ka nag-grow. You know, usually the advice is you want to grow, you want to move up in your career. You go to LA where the industry is there's more opportunity, things like that. And I think that's a big part of it. You know, one thing that I've had the opportunity to sort of witness is how in Europe, just the freestyle scene there is incredible. Like, you know, because I do some stuff for BC1 and Red Bull Dance. And when I watch, like, literally there are people who just travel around on tours and they just dance as a freestyler. And it's not even like, parang, I'm not sure about how big their choreo community is, but I just know that from a freestyle sense, like, it makes more sense there to be equipped in all different styles because that opens up your opportunities. As compared here to Philippines, where the demand is usually for choreography, combinations, things like that. And so I think that's something that we have to realize that, you know, it's not necessarily that you don't have the skill. You know, for somebody starting out, it's like, it's not necessarily na hindi mo kaya. It's just the fact that, you know, like, because maybe the reason I say this, maybe people are thinking to themselves like, baha, I need to get better at this kasi parang wala, I am not getting opportunities. I think it's a big part of it is you just have to look at the market. If the market is demanding for it, then there's an opportunity. So you could be really good at Krump, and just because you're not booking jobs, it doesn't mean that you're not good. It just means that there's no demand for that specific skill set in the market, right? And so same thing with the other areas of your dance, whether that's you as a choreographer, whether that's you as a performer. Yes. And so you know, I'm glad that you're able to share now. You're sort of able to sort of dive into these different little pockets, right? Commercial modeling, finance, joke, but yeah, those little areas that allow you to sort of navigate the financial sort of you know, the financial part of our life as freelance dancers and artists, you know. Cool. That's some good stuff there too. We're gonna sort of wrap up where we're at, and I think we've had such a great discussion. So you know, I kind of just want to end on two notes. So the first one is, where do you draw your inspiration from when you're dancing? And you know, this is more from like a a theoretical perspective, not necessarily like you know, it doesn't have to be necessarily Krump, right? But like just dancing in general, because it seems like you're a fan of all types of different movements, and you've even told me before you want to do choreography with me. I was like, oh, I would like to do that. You know what I mean? But yeah, you're such a passionate person for different styles and different and just dance in general. So where do you draw your inspiration from? Is it people? Is it styles? Is it movement? Is it music? Is it like objects? Are you inspired by, you know, when you see the way a desk is sitting in it, like, or a chair and the way it rolls around, you're like, ooh, I like that, you know?
Ooh, I want to roll.
I want to roll like a chair. Or like events, you know, there's something happening in the world that's super important and that inspires you. What are some of these things that you sort of pull from to sort of keep you in your dance?
I draw a lot of my dance from my feeling.
Nice.
From how I think, how I'm thinking ngayon and how I'm feeling. If, for example, it's, kasi yung music na papakinggan ko, it depends on how I feel. So it will always be dependent on that. And sometimes, pagka gusto ko lang mag-freestyle, it also depends on my intention. Pero my intention will also depend on my feeling. Hindi maganda yung pakiramdam ko ngayon. So, ang intention ko is to release that feeling.
Yeah.
So, sige, gusto ko mag-release ng feeling. So, mamimili ako ng kanta na nakakaiyak. Kasi gusto kong umiyak. Ganon. So, dun talaga siya nag-system. And I think, yun din yung strength ko and at the same time weakness ko sa dance ko. Strength ko siya kasi it gives parang mas nagiging genuine yung dance ko.
Yeah.
Siguro.
Yeah.
hindi naman talaga ako technically magaling sumayaw. Mas magaling ako mag-perform kaysa mas magaling sumayaw.
Oh, wow.
And yun yung feeling ko lang. Feeling ko lang. Ang sama na ugali ko. Tapos, from there, saan na ba ako? Ayun, doon ako nag-start.
Feeling. Yeah.
And then, yung movement, pagka nandun na ako, when I'm in the zone na, doon lang ako sumusunod yung music and then sumusunod yung movement. With the style naman, not really. Lalo pagka, lang ako, when I'm just expressing.
Yeah.
When I'm not in a battle, when I'm not in a tournament, when I'm not showcasing, and mas freestyle lang ako in expressing, yung style really doesn't get into my mind. Right.
I like that. I like, this is a super interesting conversation because when you said about feeling, it shows us that everyone has different drivers for how they get into their dance. So for example, I know many people who will pick songs. They listen to it. It sounds dope. And then it puts them into a mood, right? They're like, and then I'll get in that zone. What you're saying is like, you have that mood already, and then you'll just look for the song that supports that mood. You know what I mean? And neither one is wrong or right. It's just different, And so I love that. I think, I'm one. To me, there are a lot of times where I'm puro feeling, in a sense that there's something that I'm going through, and then dance is definitely my release. So that's how I operate. There are times where I'm looking for movement. So I will look for the kind of music that will allow me to access a different movement. There are other times where I really love the song. And so I kind of want to, just interpret that song. I think that's why even for me, this might be like me saying this, it might sound weird, but sometimes I even find myself like being more of a fan of like music than I am of dance, even though I dance a lot. And I think the reason is this, like, so for example, I remember when I was trying out the different styles. So breaking, I was doing breaking a lot. That's how I started. And then I stopped because my friends around me weren't breaking anymore. And nakakapagod siya mag-isa. So I got into popping. So popping because you just have to stand, I don't have to do all this physical stuff, right? and then I got into Krump, but at the time with Krump, I was in Virginia, which was like the country. And so parang everyone was listening to country music there. And, you know, like if I played Krump music, they're just kind of like, what's that? You know? Um, so, you know, I realized at the time was I like music because even though I like popping, like I didn't want my playlist to be all popping music, or I didn't want my playlist to be all like breaking, and then I didn't want all of my Krump music to be like, whoa, job, you know what I mean? Like the deep beats and all of that. And so for me, music was sort of what sort of got me to different parts to sort of experiment. And I think it's an interesting thing because maybe as dancers we don't take a step back to kind of look at that. Sometimes it's, you know, you might feel like, all right, what's the next movement? What's the next style? What's the next like physical thing I'm going to learn? Right. And then when you take a step back, like what you said, it's not necessarily, it's really less about the style for you personally. It's about what the emotions that you're going through. And it really speaks to the nature of what dance is, which to some, this may sound cliche, but it's the expression, right? It's the fact that you're just able to use it to, I know, man, I can't count how many times I've been stressed out before and dance has been my outlet. You know what I mean? So that's a great thing. And people have different inspirations. I know some people who got into dance because of specific figures in their life that made an impression on them. And that's how they feel they honor them. And that's how, that's what allows them to sort of be inspired. You know what I mean? Like this is like, we're like deep stuff, you know, like talagang the nature of why you do what you do. So thank you for sharing that. I know that's a very personal thing, but I think it's something that people can learn from and maybe reflect on for themselves in their own dance journey. Really cool stuff there. Thank you. So let's talk about this then. This is probably the last thing we'll cover, which is the new normal that everyone's sort of facing, and it's a very difficult situation. To me personally, it gives me a feeling of gratitude in the sense that I feel very fortunate. I feel very blessed that despite this current situation, I'm still able to use dance as a means to sort of earn, in addition to other income streams, right? But the fact that people are still looking for dance and that it hasn't been completely abandoned in the arts, I feel very fortunate and blessed about that. Because, you know, in other situations, things could be much worse, you know, like at the worst case, I have to say, I don't get to teach class today, but like for other families, you know, they're losing homes, the jobs that they've invested in for the past 30, 40 years, and that they only know how to do, and they haven't had time to build up other skill sets. Like, but it puts them in a very difficult position. Like it's a very trying and challenging time. So what I would like to ask you is, as somebody who's experiencing this as well, what has the new normal sort of taught you? And maybe you can look at it from you as Iena the dancer, and then you as Iena the individual.
At first, nabilib ako sa sarili ko kasi hindi ako, I don't know, for us dancers kasi the pandemic was really hard hitting, hindi lang sa income stream natin, kundi pati sa heart natin, kung yung fire natin, kasi wala na yung mga events, wala na yung mga taong kasama natin. But I was kind of proud of myself in the beginning kasi mabilis akong nakapag-keep up, nakapag-cope up, kung saan I dive myself into the battle scene, sa online battle scene. And then I realized na naubusan ako ng fire dahil sa kaka-battle ko sa online. And then I think kasi yung energy ko lahat palabas. And then wala akong kasamang tao to bounce off that energy with. So yung energy niya hindi bumabalik sa akin. So naubusan ako na naubusan. So natutunan ko ng time na yun. Sometimes it's also, you really have to pause and take time to absorb what's happening around you, or take time to rest. Important din yan sa life natin. And I think this pandemic really put everyone into a pause and to just keep still. Sometimes important din yun talaga.
Yeah.
Ako kasi yung tao na hindi mapakali. I really want to move, always moving, always on my toes. Tapos, itong pandemic na to really, really taught me to, sandali lang ay na, chill ka lang. Stay in your zen. Meron ka pa rin matututunan kahit hindi ka palaging gumagalaw. And then, natutunan ko din na meron pa pala akong other skill sets na pwede kong magamit aside from my dance experience. So, nagkaroon ako ng mas maraming time to build on, to rebuild and to relearn yung mga skill sets na yon. And then maybe I can use that to... Wala kasi akong gitara pa.
Okay, sorry.
Wala akong gitara ngayon. So, maybe I can use that and add that and maybe connect that to what I have now and to what I have going. So I think sa akin po wala tingin ko I still have a lot to go sa dance ko, sa marami pa akong kailangan matutunan. And ano na yung sasabihin ko, kuya?
You're doing well.
Wala ako. Yung notes ko, wait lang. Wait lang, kuya. Ayun, okay. Tapos, blessed pa rin talaga ako. When you, it also taught me to always be always grateful kahit sa mga maliliit na bagay sa lahat. And always be present.
Yeah.
Kung saan ka, kung ano nangyayari. Yeah, and try your best to keep absorbing what's happening right now. And learning.
Love it.
Every day.
That's a lot of good advice. One of the common things, like you mentioned, let me just, rest, presence, and learnings, right? And a lot of times the common theme that I'm sort of seeing right now is the idea of rest, which is like, we've before the pandemic, we've really been in a mode of just like hustle after this, hustle and do this. And to be able to rest, to be able to be still, it just gives you a moment of reflection, which I think is important for anyone who's really sort of navigating what direction they want to go in their life, whether that's in dance journey or just life journey. And then I love what you said about being present. I think a lot of times, and I find this more personally with my relationship. So, just because, for example, for me, a lot of times I'm thinking about the next thing that I have to do, like this thing, this work that I never get the opportunity to just be here, be in the moment. And I find that that's super important. That's why I love doing things like this, where we're able to chat and just be here in this time. You know what I mean? And I think that's one of the positives that we're really seeing with this is the fact that we have the time now to be able to connect like this. It's not, in the same way where the pandemic is sort of, it limits human interaction physically. On a positive side, I see that it encourages human interaction, because now we have nothing but time on our hands for those who have the opportunity, and we can connect like this. So being present is super, super cool. And the last thing you mentioned, which is like learning, right? Which is just like, again, I'm a big believer in that, being able to learn, adapt different skills, put you in a position to succeed. You might not see it now, but maybe you see it a few years down the road where you look back and you're like, wow, parang this helped me out a lot. So wow, thank you for sharing that. That's really insightful stuff. Parang mga life quotes there, no?
Life quotes.
So we this is a really great discussion. I guess for the people watching, one thing that I'd like to end with is just, is there anything that you're working on or that you have that you'd like to promote and just kind of shout out a little bit?
Naiya ako. So I have this food business that I have. It's called Pasta Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect with a P-U-R-R, because I love cats. And then I have a cat. Yay.
Yeah.
And then now I'm diving into being a financial advisor.
Okay.
Because yes, I finished a course in a degree in finance. And then I'm trying to create this project where it's called the Brighter Artist Project, in connection to my dance. I'm so proud of myself. So I'm trying to connect the dance scene to the financial scene, where create a community of artists uh, who are more aware of their financial, what do you call this, opportunities.
Right.
Nilang magawa with their, I don't know, with their savings, with their budgeting, how they can handle their money better, na para man lang magkaroon tayo ng mga SSS benefits or benefits, social welfare benefits, kasi marami sa ating freelancers ang walang ganon. So I think that's a good advocacy to have, connecting dance with my degree. Ayan. And then what else do I have? Yes, I'm mentoring Krump and freestyle, and with Hoff Focus Technique program, we have that. Yes.
Cool.
What else?
I mean, it looks like you're doing a lot.
Taking one day at a time. Taking one day at a time.
Yeah. No, I love that. The one you mentioned about the financial stuff for the dancers, I think that's a good field to sort of be in, because I think as a dancer, you never really no one really explains that to you. You kind of just like go from one gig to another. You know, you one of the things that I wish that I was fortunate that my dad, we would have a lot of one-on-one sessions where we talk about handling money, where you handle money. But if you don't grow up in that environment, and you don't have other people you can talk to about how to actually manage finances, you might be getting all these gigs, but you're spending and you're not saving, and so I think, or for example, you don't know if you're going into a job for dance and you don't realize pala na what things are afforded to you as a dancer.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Like knowing what you should ask for, what should be provided for. Can't tell, like parang so many people will say yes to a gig, not realize pala that they didn't ask for any allowance for food or transportation. You know what I mean? Like things like this that are super helpful. So I think that's a great opportunity that you're doing, and I think there's a lot of dancers that are going to benefit from it. I also like what you mentioned, that you're venturing into pasta business. So do you cook now? Is that you cooking it?
Yes, I cook it myself.
And tell us a little bit about
July.
What sort of flavors can people expect? Little pasta shout out.
I really didn't plan on making this like a permanent thing, but since when I start something, I usually finish it hanggang sa kaya ko. So now I have 3 flavors for pasta. It's creamy mushroom, creamy mushroom and tuna. Tapos meron ng spicy Spanish. I have 3 also. It's 1 vegetarian, 1 Hawaiian, and then 1 pesto. Set up.
Nice. So for the people that we'll put up the details here, but where will they go to? Is it Facebook, Instagram, or sa'yo mismo sila mag-message?
Facebook and Instagram. Facebook and Instagram. Pasta PURRFECT. Pasta perfect.
Nice. Cool.
Facebook and Instagram, same.
Okay, cool. Thank you for sharing that. And again, for the people that are watching, do have, if you have the opportunity, try out their pasta, and reach out to Iena for sure if you want to explore dance a bit more in the Krump sense, or even just in the freestyle sense, because there's a lot of learnings that you can take from Krump that can help you explore that aspect too. So. Iena, thank you so much. Thank you so much for this chat. I had such a good time talking with you, and I learned a lot. I learned a lot. I'm sorry if there are a couple times where I just kind of went off tangents, because I'm honestly very curious. I'm just like, paano yan? You know what I mean? And it excites me to learn that. So thank you for being understanding in that aspect, and just for sharing. So guys, that's it. Thank you. This is episode 7 of Let's Talk. We had Iena Ballug with us today, and hopefully we'll see you guys next time. Iena, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Kuya.
All right. Bye, everybody. Bye.
Bye, guys.